as Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment. I feel very fortunate to be joining Toronto Wolfpack at such an exciting time as the club is gearing towards their final push in our quest for promotion into the Super League. He said, the UK's Premiership of Rugby League. I am here to support the Wolfpack on and off the field and to help them strive to continue to make a strong impact in the community while growing the sport of rugby in Canada.
The guy has definitely been involved in serious levels of sport administration within Canada, and he understands how it works.
Yeah, and in that market, in that North American market, where the commercialization is something like 700 times ahead of where we are.
They've brought in a CEO now who will run the club in a, let's say, professional and savvy way for the market that they are based in, which can only benefit the rest of the game if we go along that journey properly with them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's gonna be good. I think you can't doubt the CV. He's saying the right things. Obviously, we wait to see what he does on the pitch, but everything from that seems like this is a very professional appointment.
Yeah, I'm not sure who in the passage of time will come in to help him with that rugby league side of things, but I think that there may be some changes eventually there that help him as well with that.
Yeah, I think, don't forget, I mean, it's 3 years into their project. They're coming up to, the end of their third season. They're going to be renewing personnel and changing things around. That's perfectly normal at that point, and because they are stepping up, they're gearing up a level, and this is very much an appointment that gears up for that next step.
In terms of trying to make that next step, another piece has been put in place at the Leeds Centurions to see if they can prevent the Wolfpack from making that step to Super League. They've bolstered their promotion hopes by confirming the signing of England international Kevin Brown on a loan deal until the end of the season. The Leafers claim the deal was registered. I love the way this was written. I think I got it from Love Rugby League, but yeah, Love Rugby League, Total RL, great sources for your regular Rugby League news if you can't wait for our show each week. But the Leafers claim the deal was registered with the RFL prior to Friday's transfer deadline, meaning Brown, who is close to full fitness after suffering an Achilles injury before the start of the season, is free to play for them. So Tom Andrews got in touch. He said, how do Wire get away with this? Get dispensation for Brown being out all season and is now going to play, cheating sods. I believe that whilst they secured the possibility of dispensation, they never actually made a sign-in
to take it
that filled that space, because Burrell wouldn't be on cap this year as a new talent pool signing, and Matty Smith has been brought in as Kevin Brown's been moved out, so effectively that cap space has been replaced in that way. So I actually think whilst it on the surface it seems a bit sort of backhanded and not great, I don't actually think that they've benefited from Kevin Brown being out this season. The stranger thing for me is Kevin Brown would have been able to play in the Challenge Cup final, whereas Matty Smith can't. So that's
but then there's fit, and then there's Challenge Cup final fit, isn't there?
Yeah. Well, Brown's going to be moving anyway, isn't he, at the end of the season? So I suppose that's part of this as well.
Yeah. And yeah, good luck to all concerned.
No. Toulouse, sticking in the Championship, have agreed a deal to ground share with their rugby union counterparts Stade Ernest Wallon. That's obviously butchered pronunciation, but that's what you get here. The 19,000 capacity stadium hosted their championship game against Toronto earlier this year, resulting in the Wolfpack's only defeat of the season. So if Toulouse can beat the Wolfpack into Super League, they've got a proper ground to be playing at in Super League now. So that's fantastic news for them, isn't it? And that would only see a boost in the Rugby League at the top level in France if we could have two teams playing in 5-figure capacity stadiums So we've got a French team at home every week. I think that would be fantastic. So it's a good move for future-proofing any potential Super League position.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think they've brought something to the competition in the 4 or 5 years they've been in now. So I think it's definitely a good idea. Speaking of the Championship, Featherstone have handed young fullback Dakota Wiley a new 1-year deal. Wiley, who is 20, hasn't featured for Rovers in 2019 due to a serious knee injury he picked up in pre-season. The fullback or wing-up will remain at Featherstone until the end of 2020.
Good luck to him. Dewsbury has signed Hunsel at half-back, Reece Dean for the rest of the season, with Lewis Heckford going the other way. The Rams have also brought in Luke Nelms for the rest of 2019 alongside Dean.
There we go. Ex-St Helens prop James Tilley has signed for North Wales Crusaders for the rest of the season. The 25-year-old made his Super League debut for the Saints back in 2013.
Betfred has extended its sponsorship of Rugby League to include the women's game for the first time as first title sponsors of the Women's Super League. The deal will run alongside the recent extension of the Betfred Super League partnership until the end of the 2021 season, and it sets up a double header of Betfred Super League Grand Finals this autumn. The Betfred Women's Super League Grand Final will be played on Friday the 11th of October at the Totally Wicked Stadium in St Helens, the night before the Men's Super League climax at Old Trafford. That's a change in venue and date for the Women's Super League, because the RFL have managed to book the women's flights out to Australia for the Sunday, and Headingley, where it was due to be hosted on the Sunday, is not available on the Friday. So the Totally Wicked Stadium has stepped in there, which is, at least it's still being played at a bona fide top level rugby league stadium, which I think is good news in that regard. And I suppose if it's made a good cost saving for the RFL, and if it gets the preparation for that women's Downer Nines Rugby League World Cup thing better as well, then all around it becomes a sensible move. It's just a bit frustrating that it changes sort of 2 months, less than 2 months out from the grand final. But bringing in the sponsor, which is the news we should be talking about, is a positive step, isn't it, for the women's game?
It is, yeah. Let's just hope that we struck the right commercial value for it. I think we have in the past, as we know, not properly commercially valued our products. If you look at the Eddie Stobart deal, for example, and I hope we haven't given it as a freebie or an inside. I hope we've actually properly had this independently costed and got a proper market valuation. The launch photos were somewhat underwhelming, I have to say, but then that might just be Ralph Rimmer. I don't know.
Well, he dominates the frame, doesn't he? Too much, I think.
I think that was possibly it. They should have thought about perhaps having them in a sort of an off line, so he could be at the back and not look as imposing, or perhaps sat down, or perhaps just out the shot. Did it need him? Probably not. Could have just had, some players, a coach, and Mr. Fred would have been fine.
Whatever the deal is that's been struck, and hopefully it does bring some commercial value in as well. What it does do is it gives this product more exposure because it's got a sponsor attached, and people will take more note of that. What it also, with it being a 2-year deal, is it's in place whilst the competition is going to be growing. Now, whilst even if it's got a low commercial value, now we're talking about a amateur competition, so an amateur competition wouldn't have massive commercial value in any case, but the fact that we've got an amateur grassroots level almost competition that now has brands like Wigan Warriors, Leeds Rhinos, St Helens, Castleford Tigers in the future, and Wakefield Trinity, Bradford Bulls, and in the future it will have the likes of Hull FC and Warrington Wolves as well in that table. You would think probably within that 2-year span of this Betfred sponsorship deal. What it does is it allows that competition to bump itself up, amp itself up, continue its growth journey, so that next time their sponsorship opportunity comes around, they are in a position to really push for a strong commercial deal for a competition that may start to be able to pay its players and things like that. At that stage, you would definitely hope, and it all builds into as well making the women's game feel stronger, feel prouder, work towards 2021. And if the women can pull off something in that World Cup, it would be a massive thing if they could. But if they could pull off something in that World Cup, think of the possibilities beyond that.
Yeah, and we, we've got to get the most out of these betting sponsorships while they're still legal. Yeah, because you got to think the mood music is going that it's not going to be a million years before that goes the way of cigarette ads.
Okay.
And finally, referee Robert Hicks has been praised for his response to receiving a death threat on social media. After agreeing to meet the person responsible, Hicks was the subject of a threat from a Warrington fan after a match in May. The supporter has been given a suspended banning order following a face-to-face meeting with Hicks and Wire Chief Executive Carl Fitzpatrick, as well as collaboration with the police. Hicks said that he thought the approach would make a more effective point, and he continued, "I don't want anyone to think I'm making light of this. The incident caused significant worry and upset to my family. But having discussed the matter with Carl and the police, we thought we could make a more effective point by meeting face-to-face with the individual concerned. Although it was a difficult experience for all of us, I think we all left the room thinking it had been a worthwhile exercise."
I think the praise for this approach from all parties, I think, is right. I talked a few weeks ago, didn't I, about the role of the dickhead in rugby league in recent times.
Yes.
And what I think is, when it is someone who's just an idiot, or not necessarily an idiot, but someone who does an idiotic thing, I do think, death threats to referees in rugby league are very much a threat that isn't going to result in anyone getting killed. They're just someone being so utterly thick at the time when they do it on social media. They're not putting any effort into it. There's no planning into this. This is just someone stupid saying something stupid, or someone not necessarily stupid but behaving stupidly. The embarrassment factor of getting this guy sat down and saying, "How stupid are you?" And putting him in a situation, an imposing situation for him, to be around these figures, from his club, from the sport that he loves, and those sorts of things. You have to imagine this supporter does love the sport, to be getting so het up that he feels like making a death threat is appropriate. I think this is the way to go with those sorts of people who make these idiotic behaviours, is to call them out on it, embarrass them for it, make sure they're aware that this behaviour should not happen and will not be tolerated if it continues, rather than straight away start slapping bans, start causing big fissures between relationships. I think this is a way to fix the relationship, and I'm all for that sort of behaviour, Tim.
I think the restorative justice approach, I know certainly from what I know of it, it's just something that's used in schools a lot now, having that restorative conversation and then, saying, why did you do that? That ultimately is much more effective. And therefore, just going back to the base stupidity of it, really? You want, of all the people in the world that you have a problem with, Robert Hicks, another referee who, he's not quite ginger, but that's about as much as you can say at him. Well, really.
As well, it's a game, and your life isn't going to be any better or worse in the medium to long term if Warrington Wolves win a match in May. Let's face it, it's not. So, the guy's been dealt with. Hopefully this has taught him a lesson. Hopefully other people have seen this and realised that I don't want to be in that situation where I'm sat down in front of the club that I support getting told, if you be a prick again, you're not coming to any games again, and made to feel absolutely minuscule for pathetic, idiotic behaviour. Hopefully it puts some other people off too.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all the news then. Thanks for Tom, who was the only person who got in touch with the news, but to be honest, I didn't share the link at all this week with anyone. So yeah, but if you do want to share your views on the week's news, get in touch with us. We'll get the Google form link sent over to you, and you can comment away to your heart's content. Okay, we're now going to look back at a potentially pivotal, well, certainly dramatic round of Super League as we go into the Super League match